Welcome to Beyond Vows Veils, your luxury wedding experience. Our podcast, I feel, is a treasure trove of inspiration and insight for newly engaged couples. Join us as we have captivating stories, expert insight, and real wedding experiences that you can listen and learn from. Introducing Alisha Datwani, a visionary in the realm of bridal styling and fashion entrepreneurship. With roots intertwined with the vibrant tapestry of Indian fashion, Alisha's journey has been nothing short of remarkable. As the luminary behind her own jewelry brand, Alisha's affinity for fashion began early on. Accumulating in a profound connection with the Indian fashion aesthetics, her innate understanding of style, coupled with a keen eye for detail, propelled her towards the enchanting world of bridal styling. A pivotal moment arrived when Alisha embarked on her own wedding styling journey. This experience as a bride not only ignited her passion, but also unveiled a plethora of opportunities within the bridal and Indian fashion community. Today, she stands as a leader and a support in guiding brides through every facet of their bridal journey. From mood boards to bespoke wedding ensembles to curating breathtaking looks for the reception and beyond, Alisha's experience knows no bounds. Her holistic approach extends to every aspect of the bridal experience, including outfit changes, groom styling, and even family ensembles. What truly sets Alisha apart is her inclusive vision, transcending cultural boundaries to cater to brides of diverse backgrounds. With Alisha's unwavering dedication, she ensures that every bride feels radiant, confident, and utterly exquisite on her wedding day. Join us as we delve into the world of bridal elegance and empowerment with the illustrious Alisha Datwani. Welcome to the podcast where style meets storytelling and dreams are brought to life. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond Vows and Veils. I am super excited and so humbled to be actually joined by a past client of mine and also now bridal stylist who's been in the creative space for a while now, Alisha Datwani. So I want to give a warm welcome to her. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. So excited to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So first I want to talk a little bit about giving everyone some background to just more talking about your bridal styling services. Obviously, I know that you do offer other services in the creative space, but maybe you can just share a little bit about what you do with that space.
Yeah, definitely. Bridal styling is something that kind of fell in my lap in the last year. Things really took off after my own wedding. And I just started getting contacted by quite a few brides saying like, I need help with this, and this, or, the process is so daunting and how did you go about it? And, it's always something that I've tinkered with. Like fashion has been in my background for a really long time. I've done a little bit of wardrobe styling before, so it wasn't a huge departure from stuff, but I remember kind of feeling the pressure at first of like, this is a really big responsibility. Like someone's wedding is one of the biggest weekends of their life, and what they wear is such a big part of it. It's so closely tied to their identity, which I think is really interesting. And I remember when I started getting the opportunities, you were actually my first phone call because I was really like, Brittany, is there a space for this? I'd love to do it, but I'm so curious about if people need it or not. And I've been blown away really in the last year by how many people have reached out for help and benefited from it. And it's been a joy, like to do it for other people. After doing it for myself, it's really been a joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who are listening, obviously any brides that are newly engaged and you're kind of in that stage where you're figuring out your looks, having someone come in that knows how to curate different looks. And we'll talk a little bit later about, maybe how that can elevate just overall your aesthetics for your functions all throughout. But ultimately, when you're creating a look, it's really important that that's done intentionally. You don't want that to be an afterthought. You don't want it to kind of wait till you're making your trip. You really want to create some mood boards and be really clear about that look from the beginning. So I'm so happy, Alisha, that you offer this service. And I would offer this to literally any bride because I can't imagine the amount that goes into it. But maybe you can just start off by telling us, why are you so passionate, you think, about this area, or why do you feel like you were really drawn to it? Obviously, there was the overwhelming nuance of you having to do it yourself, but
Hmm.
where do you get your passion from?
Yeah, fashion has always been a part of my life. Like my both my parents and my sister, we've all been in the industry. So it's just been something that I've been around growing up my whole life. And I think
Mhm.
my family actually really encouraged me to find my voice through my personal style growing up. Like I had all these crazy ideas about what I wanted to wear to school every day, and just it just started from a really young age. And I think I'm actually very introverted. And I've always felt like fashion was such a great way to give people a sense of who I am without ever having to say a word. And I
Mhm.
think your wedding kind of becomes the epitome of that, right? There's so much pressure to infuse your personality into your wedding these days. And I
Mhm.
think that when it comes to a head, really, at your wardrobe. Um, so when it comes to Indian fashion, I've also just I've always loved it, and I spent my summers growing up in India, so I've just been really close to it my whole life. And it's such a great way for me to stay connected to my culture.
Mhm.
Like even from a day-to-day basis, like the regular day-to-day clothes I wear, I always support Indian brands and kind of pick up fashion inspiration from there. All of these like little things just started to come to a head and just turned me into a bridal stylist in the last year. And it really happened, took off after my own wedding, and it was a challenge, but one that I was so ready for after a really long time. And I think my approach to it kind of started to build my framework then for how I work with brides I work with today. So it was really helpful. And I think from a bridal perspective, it's really helpful for them to be like, I'm coming from experience. I've been in your shoes before, and I know like the pressure, the challenges, or like the confusion. And I'm kind of just there to help parse through all of it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you definitely have firsthand knowledge and, the challenges that go into that. Maybe you can just share a little bit about when you were a bride, when you were kind of going into your looks. How did you navigate that? Or like, how did you organize or get your thoughts even together? Because obviously there's so many different steps, but obviously figuring out your look, I think, is probably step number one. I don't know. Maybe walk us through that process.
Yeah, I think a big part of it first is really fitting your wedding wardrobe into the vision for your wedding. Those two things are so hand in hand. And for me, I got married in Miami. So many of my events were outdoors. Like that's like the low hanging fruit, right? Is your event indoors, outdoors? How
Mhm.
formal is it? How informal is it? But then I think something that I was interested in is like, what am I trying to evoke from my event, right? So, like, for
Mhm.
example, from my Sangeet, I was really trying to go for something that was like, a lot of people describe like their outfit as fun for a Sangeet, but I wanted to do something that was really different. Like, I wore black, which was really unconventional for a bride, but I made it colorful in a way that was not threatening as like, oh, you're a bride wearing black. For my wedding day, I wore green, which is also very unconventional, but I went a very traditional route in terms of like the designer and embroidery that I chose. So I wasn't departing so much from like what's expected, but I was still keeping things fresh. And I think that's something I
Mhm.
like to recreate a lot. It's a balance always with me between like respecting tradition, but being who you are. I think that's something that comes up a lot with a lot of brides that I talk to is like, okay, this is what's required of me, but this is what I really want to do. And then it's a matter of combining those.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's so important. Anyone who's listening, balancing tradition. Obviously, we want to make everyone, your parents happy, and you want to give respect to the culture and the events that you're doing. But I completely agree, like having your own spin on it or giving that modern flair is really important. So having a stylist that can support you with every single look, making sure it hits all the check boxes is really, I think, pivotal throughout the whole process, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting because it's like, with fashion is everyone has their own like sense of personal style, but it's in the same like
Mhm.
if you're great at doing your makeup, you're not necessarily going to do your own makeup at your wedding, right? So like you could be
Right.
really great at dressing yourself on a day-to-day basis, but that doesn't mean that you should be solely responsible for dressing yourself at your wedding.
Right, 100%. In terms of the process, like I'm just curious. So if I'm a
Hmm.
bride, I'm coming to you, obviously I'm seeking you out primarily because I
don't have any clue where to turn. And I have like lookbooks and inspiration maybe from my friends' weddings. But, what is the primary reason that you feel like your clientele is seeking you out? And, where do you feel like you're able to support just in terms of like your onboarding experience, maybe walking brides through that process?
Yeah, definitely. I think brides come to me for a lot of different reasons. So I have some brides that are fusion brides, right? So it's really a matter of trying to figure out like what cultural elements are important to incorporate with trying to balance like maybe their own culture. It's just a mix of a lot of different things. And then if you're not familiar with Indian fashion, the range is so wide, right? Like
Right.
there's modern, there's traditional, there's sculptural looks, like there's color palettes, embroidery styles, different silhouettes. Like it's really just a whole universe. And trying to tackle it on your own is really, really tough. So that's just one type of bride that comes to me, right? Then I have another bride might be having like a traditional Indian wedding, maybe two families in the same culture even that are just like, okay, I really want to do something out of the box. And I don't know like what designers can customize. Like I don't have any different ideas based off of what I see on Instagram or Pinterest. And it's really about like coming up with something unique and memorable. And then also, I always encourage brides to really zoom out, like look at your wardrobe as a whole, and then zoom into each look, and let's try to figure out like, okay, let's not do too much of the same thing, or in the same sense, let's keep some consistency in your look. So we don't want you to look like a different person from Friday night to Saturday night.
Right.
In terms of the onboarding process, it's kind of evolved over the last year, but now it's a really good system where I initially have people fill out a bridal styling questionnaire that just kind of gets all the details on paper so that I can start to
Mm-hmm.
get a sense of what their wedding is and maybe what their vision is if they have one. If you don't have one, that's also totally fine. I think every bride is very different. But those basic things that really influence what you're talking about, where's your wedding, when's your wedding, who are the key decision makers, that's a really big one because we want to make sure that like we're not putting together a whole look and then, it gets thrown out by like someone who has a really important opinion.
Totally. Totally.
Where do you fall on the scale of like trendy to timeless, right? What's your budget? How many looks are we doing? Do you want outfit changes? Do you have after parties, right? So all of those things are part of the bridal styling questionnaire. Then I get a sense of what we're looking at project wise. And then we can have a call, like talk about additional support that you might need. And then from there, it's just a sense of like putting together a proposal. And if we're all on board, it's just like going through that journey together. It's a really long one. And there's so many moving parts, right? So it's really daunting at first. And then as soon as the looks start to shape up, it starts to get really fun.
Yeah, totally. I think I was even like a little ignorant to the amount of work that goes into curating a look because, not, coming from a cultural background, when you have these we call them white dress weddings, you're
Hmm.
usually just getting one outfit, maybe two, and, pairing that with some shoes and calling it a day. But there's so much more that goes into it. And it really is, I think, so critical for any bride that's, if you're hosting a multi-day event and you are doing back-to-back looks, you also have to think about, and I know you're very familiar with timelines, Alicia, and hair and
Hmm.
makeup
I
schedules and
am.
all the craziness. But you have to also make sure that the look you're creating or that your stylist and you are working on is feasible for the amount of time that you also have to get ready. Because if you're
Hmm.
back to back from ceremony, post ceremony pictures, and you're back in hair and makeup, you don't want to get this like intricate outfit or that requires like draping, or maybe you want to go a little bit more modern but simplistic to actually get dressed, if that makes sense, because you might not have as much time. I don't know if that at all plays into factor, like when you're kind of asking about like time frames of functions.
Yeah, I think if someone is back to back on something, it really does play into stuff.
Hmm.
And I always encourage brides, and this is another thing that kind of like came from my experience that became my framework. I say, leading up to your wedding, like every week leading up to your wedding, head to toe, try on one of your outfits. put on your outfit, put on your jewelry, like roughly do your hair, roughly do your makeup. It helps with envisioning things, but then it also helps with understanding how long it takes for you to feel comfortable with where you are with the whole outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And it also gives you a chance to move around in it. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't really think about when they're shopping. So they'll go on, they'll try like a really embellished outfit, and I'll be like, okay, this is a really heavy option, and they'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I feel fine right now. I'll be like, you feel fine right now because you're putting it on for 5 minutes in like an air conditioned showroom, right?
Right.
So if your
Right.
event is outside, you have a cocktail hour that's outside, you're moving around, you have photo video for an hour before your function, like
Yeah.
these things start to add up, right? And I think that that's the context that helps with being, I always say that I'm like a type A bride turned bridal stylist. Like that's the context that helps from someone who's gone through it, is that I kind of think of these angles that someone else might not, or someone who's like even 5 or 6 years away from their wedding might not have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're totally right. I think that's brilliant actually to try on your outfit. I honestly don't think a lot of brides think about that, because I know that
Mm-hmm.
there's plenty of times where I'm with bride and she's getting ready and we're putting on outfit and she's like, "Oh my gosh, my skirt is way heavier than I thought. How am I going to do my Singy performance tonight like in this skirt?"
Mm-hmm.
And I always say practice in your outfit if you're doing a like an actual dance, like literally dress rehearse in your
Mm-hmm.
outfit so that you can get used to how the skirt moves, because I'm totally with you, Alisha. Like it's one of those things that you don't know until you actually try it on, heels and
Yeah.
all, because
Heels and
I've had a
everything.
lot of
Yeah.
brides that are like, I'm going to just kind of like maybe nix that part of it. And it kind of gives them a little bit of stress
Yeah.
that maybe could have otherwise been prevented.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if, speaking from experience, like I didn't have my outfit at the time of me practicing my dance, and I just got like a really heavy one, like the heaviest one I could find that I owned, and it was just like it was like a staple in my apartment. It just like stood there for when we were
Yes.
ready to practice. And then I put it on. Even if you're wearing a t-shirt, just like something to give you a sense of like what are you working with, right? And I think the important thing, like one of the important aspects of bridal styling is minimizing surprises, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're the expert on this, right? Like,
Right.
the more you can minimize surprises during your wedding, like, the more mental load you can do before your events start, the better
Yeah.
off you are, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I made my whole family try on their outfits. I was like, if I'm doing this, we
Brilliant.
can all do this. And then, if anyone has complaints, like, let's handle it now so that we're not dealing with this, when I want to enjoy time with my family and friends have flown from all over, right? Like, you don't want to be thinking about like, oh, my Sangeet skirt's too heavy.
Yeah, 100%. I totally makes sense. And I love that the skirts totally do stand up on their own, because it will be so
Yeah, they
funny.
do.
We'll literally be like Singy wedding reception. They'll all just be in a
Just
row at the end.
standing. Yeah. It's like
It's
it's
so
like an
cute.
invisible mannequin.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah.
It's so cute. I love it. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, obviously intentional with your outfits, but how do you feel like choosing your look? So I used to actually tell clients many years ago, I would say, it starts at your invitation suite. And then we
Hmm.
want to make sure that the look is kind of curated based on that. But I actually think after kind of chatting with you and learning more about your, expertise, it really does start with the bride's outfit, and everything else sort of just complements and should move around that. Can you talk to like how
Hmm.
you feel like the bridal attire really plays a role to the aesthetics of an event?
Yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to brides specifically, I think being a bride, I always say this to people when they're starting their journey, like wearing red or white or a certain designer or a certain amount of jewelry, like none of those things are going to make you the bride. Being a bride is about the energy that you're bringing to that weekend, right? Like I remember people would message me and they would say something like, "Oh, well, is this outfit too much for your event?" And I was like, "There's no such thing as too much for
Mhm.
my event. Like that, my love language is when people like dress up for me, right?" I don't really think that there's some specific element that's going to make someone a bride. It's really just about like the energy that you bring to the table. And I think when you radiate that, it's the clothes are just kind of helping you along the way, right? Um, and I think it's about finding things that complement you. I think like the really matchy thing with outfits and decor and even grooms, I think that that's really something of the past. And it's about finding a way to like that you can be the center of attention and everything else around you complements you. But it's kind of like, you know, when people describe their personal style and they use three adjectives, it's like I almost encourage people to do that with the different events in their weddings, right? And then you can see like, okay, does my decor fit this vibe? Does my outfit fit this vibe? Is my music this vibe, right? And it's kind of like you're creating an experience for your guests, and visually your outfits are a really big part of that. So I kind of think that that's the framework that I go into it with, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for any bride that's listening, like nobody does this. So your maid of honor is not going to be able to support you with this. Even your wedding planner is
Yeah.
not going to be able to support you with this. Like talking about your outfits and specific details for like an extended period of time is really a lot. And ultimately, you know, as planners, we're kind of more focused on, you know, of course, we care about the experience and the
Hmm.
aesthetics, but working with someone who specializes in being able to customize this experience for you is, I just feel like something that everyone should line item in their budget. I think it's really important to have because otherwise it can tend to sometimes feel matchy matchy, and we definitely want to create a cohesive look. But I think that's really important because obviously what you offer is being able to have a lot more conversations to be able
Hmm.
to get to that level of intention and create that aesthetic. And it supports so much your planner and your lead designer so that you can send them pictures of your clothes up front. And you can say, hey, these are some of the mood boards that I've come up with. This is really what I want to create. And everything can kind of play into that. So even if you're between venue selecting and still kind of figuring that out, that's totally fine. I think it's just
Hmm.
important that you want to make sure that the spaces that you're choosing, again, indoor, outdoor functions, all those play a big role in the conversation. But already I'm learning so much from you. I honestly am so excited to like have brides resonate with what you're sharing because I feel like
Yeah.
bridal styling is such a pivotal thing that, you know, everyone needs.
Yeah, I think maybe in the past it's something that's kind of like fallen to the side. My mom could go to India and figure out my outfits for me, right? But I think
Hmm.
like I think I mentioned this earlier, but I do often see a lot of pressure for like people to feel like they're infusing every part of their wedding with their personality.
Hmm.
And when it comes to clothes, it's like someone might not have that relationship with their family that they trust them entirely to go to India and pick everything that they want. And your like your sister, your bridesmaids, whatever, like they are already doing so much for you during your wedding, right? Performances, speeches, you know, all this stuff that it's rare that maybe you're going to find someone who's going to talk to you for like a half an hour about the pros and cons of a neckline, right? So
Right.
having someone to support you with that and just I've learned a lot that what brides are really looking for is a sounding board. And it's
Hmm.
just someone to give them like a really honest third party opinion that sees all of the angles that that you maybe might be missing, right? And I think that
Hmm.
that's really important. And like we talk about, I think I say this often, like when I work with brides, it's not just about like, okay, is your event indoors or outdoors? Is it hot or is it cold? It's in the specific area where you're walking towards your ceremony. Is there a lot of wind, right? Like, should we not
Hmm.
have loose pieces of hair around your face? And if you want that for your reception after, let's make sure that we communicate to your hair and makeup artist that they pin some back that you can easily take out, right? And it's
Hmm.
those nitty gritty details that give you like a very well rounded look that's compatible with your venue, your decor, you know, all those things.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you also mentioned hair and makeup because that's so something that's so critical to kind of complete the look. Are you involved in those conversations? How does that kind of transpire? Like after the outfit's sort of picked and, you know, obviously she's scheduling someone to create those services. Like what's your role in that?
Yeah, I would say, and I say this often, it's funny because when I was a bride, I think it frustrated me, but now I'm on the other side and I totally understand. It really depends on the bride.
Mhm.
It kind of depends on how much support they're looking for. So I can do really like end to end bridal styling where you come to me with absolutely no vision, and then we get as detailed as like, what is your specific eye makeup look like for this event, right? So I can get as detailed as a bride wants me to in terms of putting together the hair and makeup, putting together like, if you have a handbag, like what's that handbag? And I've gone so far as to put together like photo lookbooks for like to send to a photographer for mood boards, right? So it's really just a matter of how much support someone is looking for. I really love to consult on hair and makeup as well as just like the outfit and accessories because it is such a big part of your look, right? Like recently, I worked with a bride who actually wore an outfit that wasn't necessarily really bridal, but we got this beautiful hairpiece for her, and it kind of changed the whole look. And you can look at, I have great examples of you can look at the same outfit styled three different ways, and it looks completely different. Hair and makeup is a really big part of that. And I like to give the makeup artist like space to do their art, but it's just a matter of like conveying the vision appropriately.
Right, absolutely. I think that's really important. Obviously, bridal stylist isn't going to be stepping on hair and makeup toes because ultimately, I
Hmm.
think the hair and makeup artists, in my experience, they're very grateful if you're coming to them with a look or an inspo that they can really play off of as opposed to just like not knowing at all. And one
Yeah.
time I actually had a bride and again, you live and learn. I think anytime that you run into like snags, you're always like, oh, like that's actually a really good point. We should implement that for the
Hmm.
future. And one thing that we ran into was that the bride trialed actually the week of her wedding, her hair and makeup. So she just wasn't able to like get here before then. And when she sat in the hair and makeup chair, she was like, I actually have no idea what I want. And so it was like, oh gosh, like we need to like figure out like and that can be really stressful because you're trying to figure out, and even though if you feel like, oh, I'm low key, I don't really want a lot or, what have you, even if you're low key, I think it's important that you have some sort of direction. And so that's really great that
Yeah.
those conversations can be happening, obviously, with you alongside of creating the looks.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I always tell brides like, you're wearing these outfits. You don't want your wedding look to be such a departure from who
Hmm.
you are in your day-to-day life, right? Like I have a bride. I love her. She came to me with like she filled out her bridal styling questionnaire and I asked brides to describe their personal style and her personal style was like lazy athletic, right? And I think like some of the suggestions she was getting for what she should wear were these really really heavy fully embroidered outfits. And I was like, okay, I understand the level of formality that you need to achieve. Let's achieve that with a lighter embroidery style, or else first of all, you won't have fun. And second of all, you just won't look like yourself. And if you don't look like yourself, it's not going to resonate like with your loved ones, right? They see you
Hmm.
on a day-to-day basis and they don't want to come to your wedding and then see you like a doll, right? Like
Yeah.
they just want to see you be yourself. And it's like it's the same philosophy behind if you don't wear makeup every like at all, say even when you go out on a day-to-day basis, you just don't do it. You're not going to tell your hair and makeup artist to wear like a full face of foundation and really heavy makeup. You won't be recognizable. And I think the
Right.
thing I'm always trying to achieve is how do you show up as a bride as your most authentic self? And how do you like appear as like, okay, this is like a 2.0 version of me, right? That's
Hmm.
always something that I'm chasing.
Yeah, I love that. You actually put that beautifully because ultimately it isn't about making you look different. It's about enhancing your look that day and
Hmm.
elevating it so that it can really complement, the formal events that you're hosting with your families. So totally agree.
Yeah.
Some of the other things that you and I discussed, which I had no idea, I get asked a lot, like how do I give my guest even direction? And we kind of talked about
Hmm.
that earlier in terms of, a mood board or what have you. Maybe talk a little bit about, I mean, obviously you can do a lot with bride, but where do the other family members or wedding party or guests, where do you feel like you could be supportive there?
Yeah. I think again, it's really about like a bride's needs. And I think
Mhm.
from a guest perspective, also been on that end so many times, I think guests are looking for direction, but they don't want to be boxed in, right? So keeping things like appropriately broad is also a fine balance when it comes to guests. Like for example, my wedding day attire was pastel. And I thought that that was broad enough for everyone to feel comfortable wearing something to my wedding day. And it really paid off in the aesthetics of the overall event. Like, all the photos are so beautiful because they're so cohesive.
Yeah.
And it kind of made everyone feel like one big family. It's weird how like clothing can do that.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of power in creating like an aesthetic like that. And I think it's a matter of finding, like, helping a bride. For a lot of times for brides, it's really just like, this is one more thing that I need help taking off my plate, right? Like, how do I get a dress code for my brides in the books? Like, can you help me with that? And it's just a matter of like putting together a Pinterest board or something along those lines that goes with what they want the event to look like.
Hmm.
And it's something I can take off their plate. And similarly, that happens with like family members, right? It's like, oh, can you help me? Even if it's not like fully styling head to toe, a family member, it's like, can you help me with suggestions? Like, what designer should I look at? What color palette should I look at? Like, those are all things that I can just consult on, that if it
Hmm.
helps you even find a direction, it's helpful.
Right, absolutely. Now, back to as far as the bride, I was just curious. When you are creating this look and you've sent the mood boards and you are on the same page, are you sending them just more or less like, here's some people that I would recommend that you reach out to, or boutiques to go try out? Or are you more like link specific, like go buy this outfit? Like, how does that process work after you've created the look together?
Yeah. So I think it'll come down to where we're sourcing the outfits from.
Hmm.
Some people are open-minded about getting in touch with India and like working on that timeline. Other people prefer to like work within the US. So as soon as we have like options narrowed down, like I can be as involved in the ordering process as a bride would want me to be. Like
Sure.
I'm in group chats with the stores and my brides about like, or on email threads on how to accomplish things and get things done. And then when it comes to accessories, it's a mix of like me sourcing things and pitching it to them. And then they can kind of like go from there, purchase them. And then we can do the, like when everything comes together and put the look together, it's like, okay, well, maybe we swap those out, or maybe we consider like a different shoe, or, it's just a lot of moving parts.
Hmm.
And it's like a matter of keeping track of those. It's like a team effort most of the time with my brides, because
Yeah.
I rarely run into people who are just like, okay, give me a look head to toe and I'll wear it and we'll move on, right? It's
Right.
more fun when it's a collaborative process. And I find that brides that are seeking out bridal stylists are actually looking for that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a conversation, right? It's just a
Hmm.
conversation. It's connection with someone else that understands your aesthetic, understands what you're going for.
Hmm.
In terms of, budget, just curious because I have brides ask me all the time, is it fair to say there should just be a bulk amount, or is it kind of per look? Or what would be some of the maybe just tips that you would give for brides even when they're considering their budgets or things to put together?
Yeah. The way I approached it was I had like a top line amount of how much I wanted to spend on my entire bridal wardrobe. And sometimes people are comfortable with that because it helps like with the decision making. Like, okay, this look is really much more important to me than this one, and I'm willing to like spend a little bit more on this one. Or
Sure.
this designer has been on my bucket list for my whole life. I have to wear this outfit, so then we can kind of like divvy up the rest of it amongst the other outfits. Um, I think that it's fair if a bride wants to do like a certain amount per outfit too. That's totally reasonable as well. It's really comes down to preference, right?
Hmm.
I think like that big amount kind of gives you freedom
Hmm.
to like test, experiment. But then other people see, some people might find that a little bit daunting, right? So it's a matter of comfort level when it comes to budget, because things can really add up quickly, right? Because
Right.
the outfit is just the beginning of it. When you start to add in, like if you have hair accessories, jewelry, shoes, if you want to carry a handbag, right? Like customizations, those things all start to add up. So it's a matter of getting to a number and then almost like shopping below that number so that you're giving yourself some buffer.
Yeah, that's actually really intelligent to do because ultimately it all adds up. And we always say like
Mhm.
we have to have cushion room in the budget. That's why whenever we put like budgets together, we always budget for maybe a little bit more guests than you would be anticipating because that's kind of where that room comes from. So that makes
Mhm.
a lot of sense. Totally. Okay, very cool. As far as, trends and innovation, obviously we talked about staying away from matchy matchy and being more cohesive.
Mhm.
I am curious, like, is there anything in particular that you're seeing in bridal fashion world today that you feel like is something just a standout point for brides to consider?
Yeah, definitely. I actually think the biggest trend right now, and this is a little counterintuitive, but I think the biggest trend is not following trends and just
Mhm,
finding the best way to translate your personal style into your wedding. I
mhm,
would say, like in the last few years, like a good amount of time, there's been like this development of like a bridal, I would say like I call it a playbook. Where if you do like your basic South Asian functions, you have a sangeet, you have a wedding ceremony, and you have a reception. I think in the last few years we've seen a lot of like, okay, I'm looking for a fun, colorful sangeet option. I'm looking for a white or pastel wedding option, and I'm looking for a jewel tone modern reception option,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And I'm sure that like all those buzzwords are kind of like bringing up all these brides to you because so many
Right.
people
Yeah.
fit that bill. And to some extent, so did I, right? Like, I totally had a fun Sangeet option, a pastel wedding option, and a jewel tone reception option. But I did everything I could to make those my own.
Mhm.
I wore black. I wore like really edgy makeup one day. I wore green. I had like really custom like chura and kalire, which are like these really traditional Punjabi bridal features. Um, and I think it's really about like making these things your own. That's
Yeah.
like a little bit of a counterintuitive response, but there are
No.
so many other like trends that I see. Like I'm seeing a lot of after party outfit change options
Totally.
that people really want to
Yeah.
focus on. And I think that that's a great one actually because those after party and outfit change outfits are really the ones that you can easily wear again, right? Like they're
Mhm.
usually lighter, easier, more fun, and you can just pick that up and wear that again. Um, but even so, I think a sustainable bride is really also like the next wave of things. I think because the investment is so much in your wedding wardrobe, brides are
Mhm.
really starting to look at, okay, if I buy this outfit, how am I going to wear it again? And there's some that you absolutely like might never be able to, but being able to with some of like say you have 9 outfits, if you want to rewear at least 4 of them, that's a super reasonable thing to talk to your bridal stylist about, right? Like how do I focus on finding outfits that I'm going to be comfortable wearing again? And I think like a goal of mine is to have a bride that I style for her wedding and then restyle her outfits for after her wedding.
Yeah.
Like I just think that that would be like a really fun challenge, but I think that sustainability is something that people are like really kind of focusing on.
Mhm.
um, and then like, I think unexpected silhouettes and a little bit of a return to like traditional is going to be something that we see a lot of in the next few years.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. I really appreciate it. As
Hmm.
far as when you're placing your orders and things like that, I was just curious, length of time. So as far as when you've curated your look, you've selected your designer, and you're going to place the order, how long are you seeing, or what's the turnaround? I mean, obviously, I know it depends on designer, but do you feel like there's a certain appropriate time frame that brides like definitely need in order to like curate a look and really, get everything that they're looking for?
Yeah, I would say like at a minimum, you really absolutely need 6 months.
Hmm.
Because the outfits can take it's a little bit complicated sometimes. It depends on the designer that you're working with, and then at times because like peak season can increase timelines. So if you talk to the same designer at one time, you might be looking at 3 months, and then if you talk to the same one a few months later, you might be looking at 5 months, right?
Right.
So those are the things that you really have to get on top of. I like to get started right away, just in terms of getting a sense from brides what they're interested in, and then I can probably consult a little bit better on what the timelines might be looking at, right? If you're looking for something really bespoke, you really need months of, like, I would say 6 months is a minimum. And another reason
Hmm.
is because it's it's hard to accessorize without your outfit in hand, but it's often something that we're doing, right? Like we're working on this like dream of an outfit and trying to
Right.
accessorize it. Like you're really coming up with that option like without touching and feeling fabrics or how things look together, and it's a challenge. So the faster you can get the accessories and outfit in hand together to feel confident about it, the more you give yourself time to be like, okay, we need to start from scratch with the accessories, right?
Hmm.
So buffer time is really important when you're looking at your bridal outfits. I would say 6 months is like really, you're already cutting it kind of close. The
Hmm.
sooner you have your stuff together, the better off you are. Like the mental load it takes off, it makes a really big difference.
Yeah, 100%. I have some brides that, are a little bit more casual about it. And I'm like, listen, we got to go. You can't start soon enough.
Yeah,
I tell them to
you can't
actually
start soon
start.
enough.
Absolutely. And I think if anyone's considering, hiring a bridal stylist, I would recommend doing that literally as you're putting your guest list together. So, guest
Hmm.
list, obviously we like to start
Totally.
with guest list, budget, and then I think bridal stylist, it's an appropriate time. Bring them in, start talking about it because it also will support us when we're like looking at different properties and things like that for consideration. Or if you already have a
Yeah.
venue in mind, at the very least, that conversation needs to happen very early on because I'm with you. It takes forever. And I've had some brides that, they get their outfits literally 2 weeks before the wedding. And I've had that happen where then it's like alterations and there's not many
Hmm.
people that, you can't just take your, you know, gorgeous Indian outfit or your skirt to like the local mom and pop seamstress. You have to have
Hmm.
somebody also that knows how to work with the type of fabric and embroidery. So it is really important. And I'm totally with you. When you have it in hand, you're able to just do those last minute tweaks that I think make all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the more prep you can do ahead of time, the better off you are, right? Like even if it's a matter of understanding like, okay, I need to place body tape in this really specific part of this outfit, right? Like
Right.
just get all those things out of the way and you don't have to worry about it. And from a bridal stylist perspective, right? Like I'm helping you put together the whole look. Like we'll have the whole thing, we'll have all the accessories, we can have everything ready. If the outfit comes and it doesn't fit, like that's from the designer's point of view, right? Like I will do everything I can to help you like work on it, find tailor, do everything we can to get it fitting. But the more time you have to do that, just the better off you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I wanted to wrap up with, Alicia, is just the memorable
Hmm.
moments that you have with any clients that maybe some of the brides listening can resonate with and relate to because, ultimately sometimes storytelling I feel like is the best part of it. And that's kind of why I started this podcast. Is there anything in
Hmm.
particular that you had with a client that you want to share?
Yeah. I've actually had this like really fun coincidence come up recently a lot. With two of the brides I've been working with really recently. Their weddings are coming up this summer. And when they first reached out to me and kind of gave me like a sense of what they were going for, the first outfit that I was like, what do you think about something like this?
Hmm.
Is the outfit that they ended up with. And
Wow.
that's not like I wouldn't say that's a normal occurrence. And it's
Right.
not something I'm chasing either. Because I think what I've learned with both of them too is the journey is my job, right? So the first outfit, I felt like the first thing that came to mind, I sent it to them, got their feedback. They loved it, but it was never like a guarantee like I absolutely have to wear that. It's because this world of options is so overwhelming. And we went on the journey, like we entertained all the other options, and then we came back to that first original one, and it feels like really reassuring because ultimately I was a bride and then I started bridal styling. It all happened really fast. So for for me to have two brides who I just like I hold them really dear to my heart, for them to both be like, I can't believe that like you were like right with their first option. Like you just like hit the nail on the head. It's really reassuring to me that like I can't believe that I'm helping people like find what they're gonna wear on their wedding day, and like it it's just really special to like have that under my belt, you know, and then have the brides actually come to me with that, be like, I can't believe that like you sent me this first outfit and then I was never able to get it out of my head and now I'm wearing it to my wedding, you know?
Right.
And I think the learning also from that about it's really my job is really about the journey. It's not about like that I can't promise every bride that I'm gonna, you know, nail your look on my first suggestion,
Right.
but being able to go on the journey is like a privilege to me. And I hold it so dear to my heart. And I'm honored that people trust me, you know.
I love that. I totally resonate with that myself because obviously I'm in a very different space than you, but being in the bridal industry and being in the wedding industry, being able to support couples with navigating kind of all of the overwhelming aspects of things and hopefully be able to arrive at the weekend and just put their best foot forward. And I always say that they can ultimately just be fully present with their guests, with their family. They're not worried about, oh my gosh, my skirt's hitting me the wrong way. Or because we all know, especially as women, if we go out and we're not feeling comfortable or confident in our look, especially for a big occasion like that, it can really be a damper on the whole
Hmm.
experience.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you want all these things to fall into place so that you can get the most out of your wedding, right? And it's your look is so personal. And like I, especially these days, it's so personal. It's, you know, it's all like the photos that you share with your friends and family, like your outfit is so spoken about too, that it's something that's so um, delicate with brides that it's like, it's a very important thing to take care of, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Alicia, how can people get in touch with you? How can brides and clients reach out to you? Tell us about your social or just your process in terms of, if someone wanted to book a consultation. Because obviously, I feel really confident that anyone that's listening to this episode obviously is going to want to be able to reach out to you so that you can support
Hmm.
them. So, what does that process look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anyone is welcome to reach out to me, social media or, you know, email, phone call, like all my information is like pretty readily available on social or just via my website, which is just my name. So it's like I try to make it as easy as possible. I think the easiest way to reach out to me, or if you reach out to me initially, the first thing I'll do is send you my bridal styling questionnaire, which is you can also access that really easily from my website, fill that out, and then it's a matter of like understanding if we're a good fit, right? I like to be pretty clear with brides about what I can and can't help with. And I feel like the only way to really work with a bridal stylist is if both of you are on the same page about stuff. And you want to be excited about the person that you're talking to, right? Like it's kind of the same thing with your wedding planner, right? You want to be excited about the person you get on the phone with a lot, right?
Right.
So if we're a good fit, then I'm always like over the moon to get a new bride. It's just like new opportunities, new challenges. Like you learn so much with everyone. And like I said, it's such an honor to work with everyone. But yeah, the easiest way to reach out is like either social or email, and then
Okay.
get started with the bridal styling questionnaire. And then like the ball starts rolling and it doesn't stop.
Love it. Love it. Any parting words for us, Alicia? Any tips or final parting words for brides that are in this process of trying to find their look? Maybe they're just at the very beginning stages, or maybe they're even in the thick of it right now.
Yeah. Honestly, like I think the number one thing that I tell brides is like when they try on an outfit, I never say like, what do you think? I say, how do you feel? Right? Just go with your gut, like really go with your gut and do what makes you feel like you can show up like your most authentic self, right? Like I want you to feel like $1 million when you walk out to your crowd, but I also just want you to feel like yourself. When you can get those two things at the same time, you just kind of create magic, you know? And I love seeing brides have that feeling like when you can get your bride there and they're just beaming, there's no better feeling than that. Like as a bride and then also as a stylist.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you
Mhm.
so much again for your time. I really appreciate it. I think everyone's going to really pick up a lot of key information. I know I've certainly learned a lot from our conversation today. So thank you again.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I loved like being able to share this with you. It's such a like really fun full circle moment for me.
I know it totally is. Don't you miss our late night like phone calls and
I
weekly
know.
check-ins
Oh
about
my
your
God, I
timeline?
know. This is the first time, Brittany, that we've had a call where I don't have like four Excel sheets like open on my computer.
Right. Where you're like, actually, I brought all my notes here. We're going to go through everything. Or you have to like look at the Monday
Totally.
board at all of the tasks. Like, what do we need to do? I
I
know.
know. Yeah, we've come a
We get to
really
hang
long way
out.
from that.
I love it.
Totally.
I love it.
Me too.
Very cool.